We are anonymous. We live in shadows. We expose truth, and we will not be silenced. What I am about to tell you is no propaganda. This is a deep dive into how one reform brigade in Ukraine has become a lethal pivot point. Listen closely. Today, the fiercest shock to the Russian advance is coming from the direction of Dnipropetrovsk, what some sources mistakenly call Dnipropetrovsk, but here on the ground, the Ukrainians have already turned the tide. The story begins with the Ukrainian brigades being reorganized, but one among them became the spark, the 141st. At first, the 141st was faltering. Morale was low, command structure was weak, Soviet-style thinking still lingered, and many expected it to collapse under pressure. But then came Colonelchevchuk, also spelled Shevchuk in Western sources, who took command and imposed radical reform. He purged the old mindsets, removed the doctrinal deadwood, and rebuilt from the ground up around modern combined arms concepts. What changed first was culture. Small units were retrained to coordinate tightly. Fire control procedures were standardized and clarified. Discipline and logistics were restored. More importantly, non-commissioned officers were empowered. They had real authority now. Liaison with artillery and drone elements became seamless, and instead of waiting for orders, they could act decisively. The decision cycle shrank. That cultural shift enabled the brigade to transition from static defense to sustained clearing operations. Once reformed, the 141st went on the offensive, pushing northward. They launched methodical clearing and interdiction operations into places like Novoselevka, also known as Novoselevka, and adjacent gray zones, areas neither side fully controlled. They probed, struck, and secured. Recon drones swept ahead, locating small Russian patrols hidden along tree lines or rural roads. Coordinates were passed instantly to forward observers. Then Bodana self-propelled guns, or equivalent tube artillery, delivered precise fire suppression and enfilade pinning enemy movements. As the barrage ended, infantry surged in. Houses, streets, alleys, rooms, everything was cleared with brutal efficiency. Russian survivors were captured or eliminated. The entire process from detection to destruction to clearance was executed as one seamless strike. The shock was immediate. Russian commanders, seeing their patrols shredded, abandoned any hope of attacking the 141st head-on. They tried to bypass it, to find a weak flank. Some small recon groups were sent toward a settlement called Alexa, or Oleksivka in other sources. Only one group made contact, and they were wiped out by Ukrainian troops who had smuggled themselves into the village. The Russians recalibrated. Direct assault was too costly. They moved multiple rocket launch systems into position and began hammering Oleksivka to prepare for another attack. But by then, Ukrainian counterattacks had already broken. The Russian momentum toward Beloko-Malka, a contested axis often mentioned in reports. The delay bought precious time. Ukrainian drone units established continuous overwatch and deep interdiction coverage. FPV drone teams were unleashed, accompanying advancing squads marking moving targets, striking Russian infiltration attempts at close range. Later footage shows those same drones intercepting Russian groups trying to bypass the brigade through forest paths or back roads. Many were wiped out before artillery or infantry ever intervened. Because the Russians no longer dared to engage the 141st directly, they were forced to take long detours. That lengthened their supply lines and confined convoys to main roads. With mud season arriving, secondary roads became useless. Everything funneled into those main arteries. Those open, exposed roads became kill zones for Ukrainian drones and artillery. Even when Russian troops tried to move through tree lines, which usually resist mud because of stabilized routes, they were hit with shelling and drone strikes. So the 141st's reorganization achieved more than local success. It created a tactical shockwave. Russian units now avoid confrontation. Their paths are restricted, their movements vulnerable, and their logistics under constant threat. And this all unfolded within a short window. As weather shifts and fields turn to mud, drones must keep operating non-stop to exploit these seasonal advantages. Recent reports confirm this transformation. On October 7th, the 141st successfully liberated the village of Sushneve in the Synelnykove district of Dnipropetrovsk, eliminating 50 Russian occupiers and capturing 8 more. Other reports state that the 141st, alongside the 225th Assault Regiment, cleared several settlements across the Dnipropetrovsk region. These operations confirm one thing: this reform brigade has become a force no Russian maneuver can ignore. Here's the full picture. A brigade once on the brink has been transformed. Its leader dismantled outdated Soviet habits, empowered the lower ranks, rewired coordination with drones and artillery, and turned tactical clarity into operational dominance. The Russians now steer clear. but their avoidance only worsens their situation. Longer routes, greater exposure, fewer safe options. The 141st now blots out the enemy's freedom of movement. We at Anonymous do not pick sides in politics, but we pick sides in truth. This story shows how leadership, doctrine, and technology can combine to create breakthroughs. This is not a fairy tale. This is war, brutal, complex, and real. If you oppose aggression, if you stand for resistance and accountability, act now. Share this story. Spread awareness. Demand that media, governments, and think tanks pay attention to what's happening here. Demand coverage. Demand transparency. Demand support for those who fight. The battlefield is not just soil and steel. It's information, ideas, and human resolve. The time to act is now.